In less than 24 hours, has Trump's Project Freedom already run into serious turbulence on the ground? Did Iran actually fire 2 missiles at a US Navy warship? Or is Washington firmly rejecting that narrative? With conflicting claims emerging, is the US now shifting into a more defensive posture after reports of its vessel pulling back? And as Iran warns of irreparable regret, is this latest threat pushing tensions in the Strait of Hormuz to a dangerous new level? The US military has denied reports that one of its naval warships was struck by Iranian missiles in the Strait of Hormuz. Officials rejected claims circulating in Iranian media suggesting that the vessel was hit during an encounter with IRGC naval forces. US Central Command stated that no American ships were impacted and confirmed that Project Freedom operations remain ongoing. CENTCOM said, and I quote, "Claim. Iranian state media claims that Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps hit a US warship with 2 missiles. Truth. No US Navy ships have been struck. US forces are supporting Project Freedom and enforcing the naval blockade on Iranian ports." End quote. A US official also told Axios that no American warship was attacked in the Strait of Hormuz on May 4. The denial follows Iranian reports alleging that 2 missiles were launched toward a US warship in the region. According to Iranian sources, the vessel had ignored warnings issued by the country's naval forces. Iranian units reportedly instructed the ship to halt, but US personnel continued their movement without compliance. The reported encounter is said to have taken place near Jask as the American vessel approached the strait. Iranian state media further claimed that the warship withdrew after the IRGC's response. Reports described the vessel as having altered course and exited the area following the incident. The latest confrontation comes shortly after the launch of Trump's Project Freedom initiative in the region. On May 4, the US Navy began operations aimed at guiding stranded commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. An enhanced security zone has reportedly been established south of key shipping lanes to manage maritime traffic. Oman is also said to be assisting in coordination efforts to support navigation amid increased congestion. However, there are no confirmed reports of any country formally accepting the US escort proposal. In response, Iran has warned mariners against cooperating with US forces to transit the strait. An official Iranian statement asserted that the security of the Hormuz waterway remains solely under its control. Iran's armed forces further cautioned that any attempt to bypass its restrictions could lead to serious consequences. Iran Armed Forces statement said, and I quote, "Major General Pilot Ali Abdullahi, in a message emphasizing the Iranian Armed Forces command over the Strait of Hormuz, said that under all circumstances any safe transit through this strait will be carried out in coordination with the Iranian Armed Forces. Supporters of Wicked America be cautious and refrain from any action that might later lead to irreparable regret, as America's aggressive move to disrupt the current situation will result in nothing but further complicating the situation and endangering the security of vessels in this area." End quote. US officials scrambled to shift the public narrative after Donald Trump announced Project Freedom, as the White House sought to frame the move as a limited security step rather than a major escalation. On May 3, the US president announced an escort-style mission aimed at clearing ships stuck in the Strait of Hormuz, presenting it as a way to restore open passage and reassure global markets. After that, US officials told Axios the plan will not rely on constant, one-by-one naval escorts for every commercial vessel, trying to downplay the scale of the US military footprint. Instead, the US Navy will be present in the vicinity, monitoring the waters and deterring Iranian forces that might threaten or obstruct merchant traffic. This marks a shift toward a looser, deterrence-based posture rather than a full-scale protection regime, with the United States avoiding a formal convoy-style model. Alongside this, Washington plans to provide commercial shipping with navigational guidance, sharing information on how to move through the region more safely. This includes identifying safer maritime corridors in routes that have been assessed to be free of naval mines and other underwater hazards. The overall approach suggests the US is trying to balance navigation support for global trade with efforts to avoid a direct, large-scale military confrontation with Iran. However, Tehran has reacted sharply to even this scaled-back plan, viewing any US military presence as a potential breach of the fragile truce. Iranian lawmaker Ibrahim Azizi warned that any US escort activity in the Strait of Hormuz would be treated as a violation of the ceasefire framework. Azizi emphasized that foreign military involvement would breach what Iran calls the region's new maritime order, which it claims gives it greater control over Gulf waters. Adding to the tension, an advisor to Iran's negotiating team issued a stark warning about the future of shipping through the Persian Gulf. Mohammed Marandi suggested that vessels may need approval from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in order to exit the Persian Gulf, underlining Iran's push for tighter control over transit. Donald Trump has announced the launch of Project Freedom, a U.S.-led initiative aimed at helping dozens of merchant ships stranded in and around the Strait of Hormuz, starting from May 4th. Trump described the operation as a humanitarian gesture intended to assist neutral country vessels and their crews caught in the war zone, many of which are running low on supplies while waiting for safe passage. However, U.S. officials later clarified to outlets such as the Wall Street Journal that Project Freedom would not involve direct naval escorts in the way his initial remarks implied. Instead, the White House outlined the creation of a maritime coordination cell that will identify and share safe routes through the strait, clear of mines and high-risk areas, while coordinating with commercial shipping lines and allied navies. This signals a more limited, advisory role for the U.S. military than the image of warships physically shepherding tankers through the choke point that Trump's announcement initially suggested. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "For the good of Iran, the Middle East, and the United States, we have told these countries that we will guide their ships safely out of these restricted waterways, so that they can freely and ably get on with their business. Many of these ships are running low on food, and everything else necessary for large-scale crews to stay on board in a healthy and sanitary manner." Unquote. U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, has confirmed that its forces will begin supporting Project Freedom from May 4th, integrating the initiative into its broader regional maritime security posture. CENTCOM has framed the mission as critical for both regional security and global economic stability, given that the Strait of Hormuz normally carries roughly 1/5 of the world's seaborne oil and LNG traffic. The command says more than 100 land and sea-based aircraft, including maritime patrol planes, fighters, and surveillance platforms, will provide surveillance, protection, and rapid response capabilities along the agreed safe corridors. Multi-domain unmanned systems, such as drones and unmanned surface vessels, will also be deployed to monitor mine-like threats, detect suspicious boats, and enhance maritime domain awareness without fully committing large warships. Around 15,000 U.S. service members across the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman are expected to contribute to Project Freedom, mainly in support, logistics, and intelligence roles, underscoring the scale of the operation even if direct combat is being avoided.